Like I give him 0% of my time because I'd rather focus on how they tried to overturn democracy.
It's true, but you know what? A significant portion of the country does listen and believe into all this madness. There's a reason why I ran the QAnon thing, because there's a big following that actually listens to things like what this guy described to Covfefe, and they think it's real. So someone like Ted Cruz, which is wildly hated amongst many people across all political spectrums, he says things like this, and he goes on a podcast and says, I think, and this is gonna be, and people listen. So it sucks. I don't wanna have to try and push back on nonsense like this, but this is why we have people that believe it and then they act on it. So talking about this violence towards the Supreme Court, which is what they're pushing with this. Yeah, they push violence, and now all the conservative members of the Supreme Court are under attack. Sonia Sotomayor's aide is under attack, and we can go through details, but Operation Rescue is the first group that said it was Sonia Sotomayor's aide. And therefore, this guy needs to be held to account, because Fox News, every entity that's trying to push this will go to capital crime, needs to be taken out, fullest extent of the law. And even Jeanine Pirro said, I'm not sure which law, but something, let's come up with something. This is their rabid approach, and enough people listen. This is the country we live in. It's seeping with idiots and lemmings that follow this stuff. You probably got 10 seconds if you have something else to say, Rick.
No, focus on everything that they are saying aside from the leak and how they tried to overturn democracy. I end with that.
The fight continues. I'm down for all of that. And I appreciate you for joining us on this Friday episode of The Watchlist. It's been a wonderful day, Rick. I hope you're back next week. I know you've been back and forth. You're a busy guy. But thank you guys also for being here with us on The Watchlist. And welcome to the new set yet again. Up next is John Iadarola with the Damage Report. I don't have to run out of here. He's in his own set because I've got my own. We'll see you guys next week. Have a lovely weekend. I'm gonna have one myself. We'll see you later.
Welcome one and all to another episode of The Damage Report. Today, of course, is Friday, and every Friday is a special day here at The Damage Report. But today is actually an especially special Friday. One might call it a big news Friday because we are joined once again after far too long of a wait in a new, I think it's like, I don't know, is that like at the top of like a new like tech-filled skyscraper? Look at this cool environment. It's Jayar Jackson, and look at his new set. If you go wide, you'll be able to see it more.
Look at this, you guys.
Sitting where I sit.
What you guys need to understand is this is the most relaxed John has been in about, we're at 4 months now, 5 months, 4 months in, because I stress John out every day. This is the first day that I haven't. I'll find a way, man. Thank you. You know what? I've been hoping to come back and see you guys for a long time. This is a big day for me.
It is a big day for us. Obviously, you've been co-hosting our show for literally years now. You're, I don't know, 20, 25 weeks into your own show, The Watchlist. And so what you may not know, especially if you're listening to the podcast or if you're new to the show, is that up until today, we shoot it on literally the same table, the same chair. So his show ends, and we have a quick reset so that I can sit in. It has not been a big source of stress for some time. Early on, not gonna lie, yes, I was very stressed about it, especially because it takes like 10 minutes before my computer will register my AirPods. But now everything's cool, JR, and it's great to have you back.
I'm glad to be here, you guys. I would like to know the transfer of watchers to dragons, but we'll figure that out soon since we now have this seamless process. I love it.
I think that we do. What I need to see in the Twitch and YouTube chat is if you had been watching the watch list, say it in the chat right now, and then we'll know.
Absolutely.
Well, not only do you get JR today, you also get the throwing away of the garbage people of the week. We're going to be talking about them. I have one that's very on theme for the news of this week. We'll have to see who JR chose. But in addition to that, we got a ton to talk about, from the labor movement to some wars we're involved in, to some wars we could have been involved in and narrowly avoided. And the right, absolute, like they love to joke about snowflakes. You're about to see like peak snowflake here. Maybe the worst candidate. We've talked about a lot of abusive, awful candidates this cycle. I think we've got the absolute worst. By the way, we are getting a lot of comments, of people saying they're watching the watch list. Yeah, it's actually, the chat is moving too fast. It's like very briefly, it was like the experience that like Hassan has at all points. It's like, you can't even read this. I don't even understand what's going on.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so thank you everybody. By the way, how great is that new functionality? It's effectively like built-in rating in the YouTube stream. I love that. I had to do it like informally back in the day. Now it's built in, so that's awesome. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about. Stick around. Garbage people of the week is how we're gonna close out the full show. So that's something to look forward to. Hit the like button, share the stream, blah, blah, blah. You know all that, and we'll respond to your comments as we go. With that said, JR, are you ready to talk about some news?
I think so, man. I feel like I'm brand new again. I don't know how this works anymore. I'm trying to run it my way. I keep wanting to talk. I'm like, let me talk. I'm hosting here.
That's true. That's true. No, this is actually the last you'll hear of JR. And with that said, let's jump into this.
This is very dangerous. You can have oversight hearings all you like, but you've determined Amazon is a piece of crap company. That's your political bias. They're subject to the laws of the United States. They shouldn't be subject to this. If we get the committee back, we're not going to do this. This is a heavy-handed approach, the most radical agenda in my lifetime. And it should be carried out at the ballot box, and it will be.
Well, first of all, I want to address Mr. Graham. First off, it sounded like you was talking about more of the companies and the businesses in your speech, but you forgot that the people are the ones who make these companies operate. And if we're not protected, and if the process for when we hold these companies accountable is not working for us, then that's the reason why we're here today.
And that, of course, is Christian Smalls, president of the Amazon Labor Union, testifying before Congress yesterday. And I'm gonna keep it real. I had not actually watched the beginning of that clip before. When Lindsey Graham like performally lost, like, you're acting like it's a piece of crap company, I almost spit out my coffee on the camera. Like, calm down, Lindsey. I get it. You love corporations. You don't care about workers. He was very honest there, Lindsey was. If we take over this committee, we're not gonna be doing this. There is not gonna be any oversight whatsoever of any corporations. And you workers who very briefly are having your opinions actually considered, it is not gonna happen if we take over again. Well, don't worry, Lindsey, we trust you. But we wanna give a little bit more time to Christian Smalls there to respond to what Lindsey was saying. Let's jump into this.
That it's in your best interest to realize that it's not a left or right thing. It's not a Democrat or a Republican thing. It's a workers thing. It's a workers issue. And we're the ones that are suffering in the corporations that you're talking about, in the businesses that you're talking about, in the warehouses that you're talking about. So that's the reason why I think I was invited today to speak on that behalf. And you should listen because we do represent your constituents as well. So just take that into consideration that the people are the ones that make these corporations go. It's not the other way around.
Okay, so I could not agree with what Christian Small says there more. And that's like the core thing that over the last year or so, we here at the Damage Report and generally at TYT, I would say, have been trying to get through to them. They try to make all of this a partisan thing, left, right. And they do that in part to hide the fact that the right, which loves to pretend in very vague terms that they're the ones who are going to deliver for their constituents, that's not actually true. Christian Small is totally right there. Workers deserve respect, and more importantly, they deserve to be compensated fairly and protected in terms of regulations of how their workplaces exist. Whether they're like Democrats or Republicans, leftists, conservatives, like there are a lot of conservative workers who are being treated horribly by their bosses, by their corporations, and the right doesn't care. They distract them from that. They try to delude them into thinking that that's not worth addressing through their focus on CRT and all that stuff, Jayar. And so I love that Christian Smalls fought against the narrative that Lindsey Graham was trying to spread in that video.
Well, I'm not sure how Lindsey Graham feels that you can say things like this as a senator and not expect that kind of pushback. It's because the narrative has been pushed so many times and we just accept it. Hey, so the Republican Party is literally against workers' rights. Straight up, he's saying it. And he says it because he thinks he sees this black dude from New York who has the accent and thinks he's not very smart, that we'll just trample all over you and say, how dare you call Amazon a piece of crap company? Guarantee you, if Amazon decides to do something that conservatives don't like, guess who's gonna call it a piece of crap company? They're calling Disney a piece of crap company. Others that have called Disney a piece of crap company before they opposed these things against trans kids and actually kids talking about who they are in their lives and maybe their parents. Now Disney's a piece of crap company. But this is the one glimpse into what Republicans will be looking for as legislators. They keep telling us what they would do when they're back in power. We're not gonna do oversight, you mentioned that stuff. This is their legislative agenda, to attack workers and real people who push companies along. They really think that these companies, that Jeff Bezos walks his ass in there every day and does all this work. No, they do these types of things and they suppress their work so they can continue to do it because they think they're expendable. We can get the next guy and the next guy and the next guy because we don't give you enough to make it feel like there's something that you can take to advance your career here. And once people are done with it, they're like, well, we got the next guy. There's plenty of poor folks for us to choose from. That's their agenda, but they just don't want to explicitly say it. And once Chris Smalls pushed back, what did Lindsey Graham have to say? I mean, I'm not sure if he said anything after, but as he's talking, it's head nodding and man, this guy is smarter than I thought.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe he's just been, I don't know, believing what he's heard on Fox News. But I'm glad that you brought up Disney there because look at what the two sides are focusing on in terms of corporations. And by the way, what I'm gonna say is the left side is not the Democrats. They're not focusing on anything. But like the labor movement on the left is trying to fight for workers' rights, compensation, those sorts of things from some of the biggest corporations in the country right now. Amazon, Starbucks are two of the most out front, but there's a lot of other movements going on saying we deserve to be paid better, we deserve to be protected. There is still a pandemic, you're overworking us, benefits, all that stuff. And on the right, it's Disney wants to have gay kisses. Seriously, like this is what they're choosing to focus on, and we should mock that. There are so many conservative workers that it is going to be hard to get through to get them to understand, as we say constantly, that we have their economic interests at heart in a way that conservatives literally never will because they're being paid not to. It is so hard to get through to them, but we have to try. We're the ones that want them to be paid, that want them to be able to retire with dignity, that want them to be able to own their own home and send their kids to college and not face bankruptcy at the first $500 economic issue that they face, or medical bankruptcy, those sorts of things. We're the ones actually fighting for their interests. People like Christian Smalls and others. And by the way, we're using a bit of shorthand. Christian Smalls is testifying in that video. There were a number of different labor activists involved or not involved specifically with the effort to unionize Amazon. I want to talk a bit though about why this was called. Now, Bernie Sanders was instrumental in getting this to actually happen. He's the head of the Senate Budget Committee. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to get the perspective of workers as they focus on the fact that right now the federal government, but by the way, we're gonna jump ahead to what they did after that testimony, but they're providing these contracts to companies that regularly, routinely break federal labor laws. Now, Amazon has racked up at this point more than $75 million in fines for violating federal discrimination and wage laws. That is a large amount of money in absolute terms. Obviously, for them, it's basically nothing because these fines are never in line with the severity of the crimes. Now, what's interesting though is last year, the company basically had to come to a settlement having to do with some of the activities they'd been getting up to. The issue was that right after they did that, right after, by the way, the testimony that you saw, more contracts were given to Amazon. And so we're gonna show you in a little bit, Joe Biden, who's gonna meet with these organizers and everything. And the issue is coming out of this, Lindsey Graham looks like the bad guy because he's the one that's yelling at them and getting all worked up and defending Amazon and everything. But at the same time, while the Democrats are the ones that are having them come in to testify, are they really on their side? Is Joe Biden, he's in speeches, he's indicated that he supports this unionization effort at Amazon. Every once in a while he'll mention it, but are you gonna see him there? Is he gonna go speak to the workers before a vote or something, JR? I sort of doubt that they're gonna give that really proactive support. Letting them come in and testify is something, but that is hardly as far as they could go. Oh, JR, I think you might have become muted.
Oh, I have, because I was typing. This is loud. See, this goes really loud. Anyways, okay. So this is one of those situations, right, where, as you were pointing out, Democrats throughout history have decided to make sure that they only associate with folks like this when it comes to a time to look better. What are you gonna do to implement it? And the way that they can also prove that is, as Smalls pointed out there, it's not just Democrats, bro. Republicans work and they're regular working Americans too. If Democrats can find a way to actually listen to folks in different areas, not just what they think are their Democratic strongholds, because workers want workers' rights no matter where they vote. The reasons why Republicans have split folks so much is because they've also dealt to what many people's personal biases, maybe racial, gender-based, all these types of things, biases they have, and have them on their side. But you know what everyone wants? They want some prosperity. They want to be thanked and respected for their work. I don't care where you're from. And if they actually do it, they can actually attract people rather than just doing it as a photo op or, hey, Chris Smalls said something, let's make sure he's standing next to me and I can do this and roll up my sleeves and say I'm really working with the people and maybe you'll vote for me. People see through that. Smalls will see through that. They call people out no matter what party you're from because they want the respect and they want to get what they deserve. Let's keep real. These aren't handouts. This is what they're working for.
Exactly. Yeah, as he says, Amazon is a thing in some senses, but Amazon is the product of the workers. At the end of the day, until they finally replace everyone with robots, it's people who lift things up and put them in boxes and close it and put it on a truck and actually send it to you, let alone actually manufacturing the goods in the first place. It is all actual workers. Sure, Bezos or whatever billionaire in individual cases organizes it and stuff. And there's managers and everything, but at the end of the day, it is about the people that are doing the actual work. They have been ignored for the entirety of American history. And at some point, there was a brief moment, 75 years ago, maybe 90 years ago, where we briefly started to care about workers. And that's how we got things like the weekend and stuff like that. It is time for another period like that. We desperately need it. The pandemic was a reminder of how little corporations actually care about workers. And so let's get more people like Christian Smalls and other labor activists that we feature on the show out there. Let's get them the support they need, recognition by the media to elevate their message, by politicians, people like Bernie Sanders, by the way, who have a platform that know that when they ally themselves with a cause, that doesn't just provide a moral boost, like a morale boost. It provides coverage. He can bring that to it. And so Bernie Sanders doing great work here. In fact, I want to give you a little bit of what Bernie Sanders had to say about this.
Questioning by responding briefly to Senator Graham, I think he suggested that a hearing like this is radical. And you know what? I think he's right. In a Congress dominated by corporate lobbyists and wealthy campaign contributors, the idea that we would actually hear from the working class of this country is in fact radical, but I make no apologies for that.
I do like that. I do appreciate that. We say all the time, of course, like you could have days go by on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, and you will never see a single person who actually makes the minimum wage, who's grinding out a living. And you'll see it even less, of course, in testimony like this. These are not the sort of people that are brought in. We don't see their perspective. We don't hear about their struggles. It is so rare, even more than a year into the Biden administration, it's rare, but Bernie Sanders made it happen. And that is so important, not just for the effort to unionize Amazon, but for all of the different movements, many of which we've talked about in the show that are trying to do the same thing or similar things for corporations throughout the country.
Maybe they'll get there. I don't know. Here's the thing: the fact that someone like Bernie Sanders can be the one saying this and then actually supporting it, and been the one saying this before we have actual words come out and have to plead their case, and he's called radical, a socialist, going to destroy the country. Again, they can't let those types of people be connected to people like Bernie Sanders because he has to still seem like he's fringe when he's actually representing the majority of the country. Let's keep it real. His 100%. Radical nature. It actually appeals to Republicans. Weird how that works.
Yeah, we've noticed that certainly over the past 6 years or so. Let's go to the pictures now. Jayar had mentioned them. Here is Joe Biden taking a picture with Christian Smalls and others. And so let's just stop on that for a sec. Am I being petty and saying he's kind of like turned away from him? I guess they're posing in the same direction. I don't know, Jayar. Am I getting too like body language analyst here?
You know what, John? You are. And
okay.
But you're getting too body language analyst there. But you know what? I saw the exact same thing immediately. It's the first thing I saw. That's the first thing I saw. And also, if you're doing a photo op, because every politician does it, or at least would like to, that if they have enough importance to, you want to highlight the person that you're trying to highlight here. And maybe it was a brain fart, I don't know. But if you're gonna embrace the guy who's just speaking in front of Congress and maybe he's getting a lot of press, you openly go, let me make sure that I have him as my buddy. Maybe the thought slipped his mind. He's a professional politician. It'd be curious that it slips his mind. Or maybe it was just a weird shot that took $1 million and he was shifting. I don't know. It just doesn't look like it's the right shot to take. If you see several of them, let's take the one where I'm more leaning towards Chris, you guys. Just maybe
exactly. Yeah, I'm sure that they took others and everything. But anyway, also, so we don't have audio of everything that happened in that interaction, but we know like the weird faux pas and weird things that Biden does. Like I really hope that he got through that meeting without saying something really weird, telling a story from the 70s or like. Just come on, Joe. Keep it together, man. Keep it together.
You know, Chris, you're a good guy. You remind me of this one guy back in the 70s. He used to smoke cool cigarettes.
Oh my God. The second he says, you remind me of, a Secret Service member needs to tackle Biden to save him from himself.
I had a friend named Jamal.
Oh no. I was hanging out in a jazz hall and no, Biden. Anyway, coming out of it, Christian Smalls tweeted, just met the president, lol. He said I got him in trouble. Good. I like that. And by the way,
maybe okay. I like that potential interaction. Obviously, if Chris said it happened, he said got him in trouble. Good. That's fun. That's a fun little interaction.
Exactly. And if you zoom in, by the way, you can see a bit more of the classic "Eat the Rich" jacket that Christian. I've been Googling it. I found something sort of similar, but I haven't been able to find that one. Also, wouldn't be able to pull it off. But anyway, I like the jacket.
Yeah.
But obviously, far more importantly, it's getting in the door. It's giving your perspective. Little snippets of his interaction, especially with Lindsey Graham. Those can theoretically be spread and people will see that this is not like, they keep trying to pitch it as a left versus right thing. It's not. It's workers against the corporate establishment. And the corporate establishment certainly has a lot of defenders on the right in the Republican Party, but amongst the Democrats as well. And so we got to get through to people, especially young people. Christian Smalls is a great messenger for that, and then can pull people in and do the organizing. As he's talked about recently, he didn't just help to launch this unionization effort, but he's working with tons of other activists, labor organizers, working for a lot of other corporations. And that's how you create a broad base of change. Just appealing to the Democrats, elected Democrats, trying to get them to do this. We've seen how successful that's been throughout our lives. So this is a different road, and it certainly seems to be one that's paying off much more quickly. Any other thoughts?
No, I think this is well, we'll see where we go. I mean, this might be the last time you hear any of this. Let's keep it real.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I've been naive. I've been wrong about pretty much everything, but I don't think so in this case.
Okay.
We'll see. Right. Anyway, before we take our break though, I did want to just let you know about one thing. I was gonna do it on the other side, but then I realized no, because then I won't go up on the podcast. So I gotta do it now. If you were watching the pre-show yesterday, you already know about this, but today is regrettably the final day for our longstanding producer, Marissa. Marissa, like, first of all, I didn't know if they can take your camera, and you're not obligated to, but Marissa's on the call right now. Her or Sophie is in the call every day. They make the show possible. Marissa started a couple of weeks before the lockdown. She's been with us throughout that, through the 2020 election and the insurrection and the difficult times with the infrastructure bill and all the nonsense with the war and everything, helping make the show work by pitching stories, producing blocks, cutting sots, managing social media stuff. Hey, Marissa's there. I don't know, can we hear Marissa? I don't know that we'll be capable of it, but that's Marissa.
I have to unmute myself because I'm usually muted.
Marissa, you are awesome. You have given us more than 2 years of your time and your blood, sweat, and tears. And now you're going off to do other great things, but it has been a pleasure working with you.
Thanks, John. Yes, I am all out of blood, sweat, and tears, so I have nothing left to give.
Well, I made sure that I pulled a few more tears from her because I was very late on something that she wanted from me this morning.
Oh man,
no,
we'll get to the garbage people soon. Don't worry about that.
Oh man.
But anyway, Marissa, it's been great. Hopefully you won't be a stranger. And thank you for everything you've done.
Never. Awesome. Thanks, John. Thanks. I'll go back to muting myself and producing the show. So.
Please do. Okay. Anyway, with that said, we do have to take our first break. So we're going to respond to some of your comments. We'll be back with more after this. And by the way, related, let me just say, I think we do, as a company, we keep people for long periods of time. Like we've celebrated this year some pretty long anniversaries. It sucks losing people. Like I still can remember, like we're in the process of losing Marissa now, but past producers for the Damage Report, like it still like hurts me that we lost Dan and Brett and Angel and Sophie. And some of these people you might be familiar with, others you might not, but there's a lot of great people on camera and behind the scenes making the show possible. And it just always hurts when you lose someone good. So anyway, with that said, let's respond to some of your comments. Oh, first of all, Nadine became a tier 1 member over on YouTube. Thank you for being with us. Much appreciated there. Cooper the Copper Dragon's been a tier 2 member for 15 months on YouTube. Says TDR is the only news source I haven't had to turn off midstream from stress. Keep doing good things, John. Thank you. We are certainly trying. Seafish says, after a 3rd month of membership, Dragon Daddy, TYT, and friend Tifa give me hope as we slide into a new dark ages. We can fight and win. We can. It is difficult. We don't lie to you. We don't pretend it's difficult, but we do have each other. Look, remember, the Amazon, they successfully unionized one of their warehouses, and dozens of successful efforts with Starbucks. There is good stuff happening too. Bay Photo says, Lindsay going to bat for Amazon shows they forget who their constituents are. He had to be reminded his constituents are workers at Amazon warehouses. Exactly, they're not like everyone, like moving packages at Amazon isn't necessarily a commie. Lots of them just live in an area where Walmart, Target and Amazon have taken over literally all the stores. So anyway, we're gonna have to remind them. Okay, we've got a lot of comments coming in of, hi JR, JR is pimping now. Very nice JR, yay JR, double dose of JR. There's a lot of comments coming in for JR. And JR, I don't appreciate that you finally return, and when you return, you have a cooler set. I don't like that.
I'm just saying, this was totally the brainchild of all these guys in here, man. Because they were like, hey, use this set, use this set, use this one. I was like, bro, it's kind of dead, it's dusty. I'll keep using John's. And they built this out, and I was like, you know what I think I'm gonna use? I think I'm gonna use that set.
Yeah, and it looks
Totally
great. They did a great job.
It was wonderful. They worked hard, man. It was every day on this stuff, man.
They did. Edwin and John and Skip and Craig and Jesus and everybody who contributed to that did amazing work to get it ready. For a long time, that was just a dark, dusty room that I would occasionally take midday naps on the floor in. That was pretty much what that studio was. We're gonna have to. I don't know if Edwin is watching, but we've been talking about switching back over to our old setup, the one here that could accommodate in-studio guests. We might have to move on that. Anyway, we'll see.
Make some moves. Okay, by the way, you can still sleep in here, but I'm gonna have to rent it out to you.
Okay, yeah, I'll pay rent. It'll be a little hostile. Anyway, let's see. Brickhouse Mama sent in a super chat to say, sent Jayar a super chat yesterday to confirm Aggies suck and hook 'em horns. Having torchies today for you, John. Sending you tasty lunch thoughts.
Oh, I didn't see it. I'm glad you re-upped. Yes. What, Aggies suck and Longhorn? Okay, I get.
Yeah, I mean, I was a Longhorn in grad school. And I did appreciate torchies. Anyway, Gary DeSteff says, John, regarding a recent IG post, don't shave your beard. We'll send beard oils if that helps. PO Box for JR2. Good to see you on TDR again. Thank you.
Your beard's bothering you, bro?
No, I just every once in a while I think, well, I know that every single time I've fully shaved, I've immediately regretted it. But maybe this time. And I'm starting to get towards that. I know it's a bad idea.
It'll be back in 48 to 72 hours.
Exactly, but I kind of want to do it. I also want to grow it super long. So you can't do both. It's rough. My life is very rough. Anyway, Matthew says, because I was moved to TDR from Watchlist without action. Sent it a super chat. Doesn't seem mad about it, thankfully, but thank you for being with us. Lots of other comments to get to, and we will, but first, more news. Okay, so if you have been watching the show for a long time, this is such a classic, stupid American politics story that we're about to jump into. It feels like 2018 again. Okay, let's talk about this. Really? Okay, nope, not fun. Nope. Donald Trump apparently had a plan to deal with drug labs in Mexico, and it is so Donald Trump. Now, thankfully, he was stopped from doing this, but we got to give you the details from what he wanted to do back when he was president. Back in 2020, he asked Mark Esper, then his defense secretary, about the possibility of launching missiles into Mexico to, quote, destroy the drug labs and wipe out the cartels. So, like, not just hitting specific spots that they think are drug labs, but attacking in an all-out war the cartels. Now, he said, we can do it, but we should keep it secret. This is what Mark Esper is saying in his upcoming memoir. Well, what does that mean? What do you mean keep it secret? You're talking about bombing a place, our neighbor to the south. Well, Trump apparently was unhappy about the constant flow of drugs across the southern border. He asked Mr. Esper at least twice if the military could shoot those missiles. He was told they don't have control of their own country and raised other objections. Trump said, we could just shoot some Patriot missiles and take out the labs quietly, adding that no one would know it was us. This is a real story. This is a real thing that the president really said to the Secretary of Defense. They won't know. It'll be the perfect crime. Anyway, he says, yeah, he'll just do it and then deny that it was them. Esper says he thought initially it was a joke, or he would have thought it was a joke if he hadn't been looking at Trump's face. And Trump was not joking, JR. Here comes the tone. He says, I bet he wanted to put silencers on the missiles. I don't know, but he thought we could do it. And they'd never know it was the US. What do you think?
I'm wondering who he thought that they would think it was. They're maybe Central America, some country in South America. I'm trying to figure which barriers or which proximity of a group or person who could specifically take out drug labs so the cartels can no longer operate. Where are those? How do you discover those? Are they do they have big signs on the top that says drug cartel here with a splashing light? Because they want to promote, let everyone know where they are so that maybe America can just bomb those drug labs. And Mexico has no control over their country. Does Donald Trump know that there's drug labs in America? Does he know that? Does he know that there's drug dealers in America? Does he know that there's rampant drug use in America? And it's not just all Mexico. It's weird how that works. Should we bomb the drug labs here? Do we not care who's next door to that?
You know,
if we do it, we can just say, it was Canada.
Yeah, I don't give him ideas because he'll do it. So someone suggested he might have seen Wonder Woman. And he saw they have invisible jets. You can't see them. We'll use those. So here's the thing. The thing that's crazy about the story is the very specific Trumpian addition to it. You might think, oh my God, that is crazy that they considered bombing the drug labs. I think that's crazy. I think that's insane and illegal, obviously. But from the point of view of like American history, that is the sort of thing that we do. It's crazy that we do that frequently, that we think that we can just take out a facility in a random spot in Africa or the Middle East or whatever. We totally do that. So I don't think Trump was totally insane in thinking. I mean, again, he was, but he had reason to believe it because that's what the US does. The fact that he thought that like no one will know. Nobody tracks that sort of thing. There's not satellites or anything. Russia won't think that that's a little bit weird that we just all of a sudden start bombarding Mexico. Mexico definitely won't have an issue with it. There won't be any debris left over from the missiles or anything. No one will have seen the planes. The whole thing's absolute madness. But thankfully, in this case, it was stopped. Mark Esper, who I'm sure is absolutely terrible in a billion different ways, didn't go along with it in the same way that he. And again, this is coming from him, so there's certainly going to be a spin on it. Let's acknowledge that. Didn't go along with what he thought was the beginnings of mobilizing the military to stop the peaceful transfer of power. Now, coming out of that, it was stopped, but we're now involved in some way in another war in Ukraine. He has the same idea. I will remind you, you may not remember this story from just like 2 months ago. At that point, he told a group of the GOP's top donors that the US should label its F-22 planes with the Chinese flag and bomb the S out of Russia. Again, the perfect crime. They'll never know it was us. We'll put a flag on it. They do flags there, don't they? He says, and then we say China did it. We didn't do it. China did it. And then they start fighting with each other and we sit back and watch. Wait, okay, again, that's insane. It would never work. But let's say he was right, JR, and that it did work. We then watch China go to war with Russia. They're both countries with massive militaries, massive nuclear arsenals. That affects us. If you were to, it wouldn't work. But if you were to successfully get them to fight each other, that's a bad thing for everybody, JR.
Humanity is something that's an afterthought to people like this because he's so focused on his own objectives and opinions about what he thinks is gonna exalt his superiority over the world. He's like, war with China and Russia, that's just like their problem, dude. That has nothing to do with us. And he truly believes this type of stuff. By the way, Esper before it talked about how Trump loves the military when they were getting along. He loves the military, he supports this and that. He's a great ally to the military. Every time Donald Trump talked about the military, he was talking about how he wanted to strengthen it because it's been decimated by Barack Obama and all this stuff. And yet, in multiple instances, he was looking to utilize the military specifically for his own use. So this strengthening of the military was strictly for his own power. It had nothing to do with protection of the country or trying to settle any other disputes anywhere else that we probably shouldn't be involved in some of these cases. But it's always about himself, and it goes right back to that. And so Esper hung around to make sure these things didn't happen. But then now we're gonna talk about it. I know that's the next level of this, but
And again, look, we can provide the same criticism that we always do. He certainly sat on a lot of this until it came time for the book. Like, look, I'm not gonna say that I'm perfect, they're flawed. I'm flawed too, but I will swear to you this. When I eventually do release my fantasy novel about a mouse fighting a magical crow, I have not held any critical information for the release that has to do with the future of American democracy or our foreign policy. I'm laying it all out there. You can buy the book freely, not worrying about that sort of thing.
I thought you were gonna say when you launch your candidacy for Congress.
That would go well.
I'm waiting.
You guys did make all of those common room videos private, right? Anyway, okay. With that said, we have to move to. So that's thankfully the war with Mexico that we avoided. But let's now jump to the war that we are potentially involved in and where it could potentially go. Let's start off with this video.
Бескрайней России, сидя на, в общем-то, маленьком острове, Остров столь мал, что лишь одной ракеты «Сармат» достаточно, чтобы его утопить раз и навсегда. Все уже подсчитано.
So that's Russian state TV. If you're on the podcast, you couldn't hear. He was saying, puny UK, you're so small. One missile, you threaten us. And it was an animation of a missile being launched, one of their Satan II missiles that completely annihilated the UK. Literally wiped it off the map as the sound of, I think, a Geiger counter going off, implying that it was a nuclear attack against the UK, started to play. And so UK, be forewarned whether the Russian military directly is threatening you. Man, this has been a great time for fake alphas on Russian state TV threatening nuclear holocaust on a daily basis. But that, JR, was only one of their plans, the Satan II missile. He has another one, which you'll see in this clip.
Другой вариант – погрузить Британию в морскую пучину российский подводный робот-беспилотник «Посейдон». Взрыв этой термоядерной торпеды у берегов Британии поднимет гигантскую волну, цунами высотой до 500 метров. Такой водяной шквал является еще и носителем экстремальных доз радиации. Пройдя над британскими островами, он превратит то, что от них, может быть, еще и останется, в радиоактивную пустыню, надолго непригодную хоть для чего-то.
So that guy with his casual tone is saying we're going to create a nuclear tsunami that will plunge the UK into the sea and then create a radioactive desert. Obviously not just in the UK, a tsunami like that would affect every one of those European countries. Now that might scare you, but understand that that host on Russian state TV was very comfortable and calm with the entire process, JR.
It's almost like this former president of the United States thinking of random things like this and how it would decimate and destroy and turn these things into a radioactive desert that doesn't have much use for a very long time. Again, it's very singular, a self-promotional type of thought. We just talked about how Donald Trump wanted to bomb Mexico for drug cartels, for his own glory, and then to say, I stuck it to those Mexican drug cartels, and actually the country itself, since they don't want to take care of themselves. These types of things are what dictatorial mindsets create. Again, I keep connecting it back to Donald Trump. He praised Vladimir Putin. He talked about how smart he was. He talked about how great he was and how powerful this was when he invaded Ukraine. What a smart move. Boy, that's gonna be some definite, I forget the term he used there, some peacekeeping there. That'll keep the peace.
Oh, yeah.
That's some strong peace right there, because nothing else matters except for his own life. So all these people who are following him, are minions behind him, and people like this guy, the thought is, only I matter. There's only certain types of people who believe this, and that's who they've collected as their followers. That's the only promotion that they'll have, is they're thinking, oh man, who cares? F them. They're gonna die. There's gonna be a nuclear desert. Great. But they have no idea how that affects them. It's like they don't know how the world works or something.
Exactly. And by the way, one of the reasons that I wanted to play this video, and we've shown a few instances of the warmongering going on Russian TV, is it's, I think, easier for people in the West and US specifically to look at that. And because it's not our media, they say, well, that's crazy that you'd be so flippant about going to war. But like, dude, too. I'm tempted to say we don't necessarily do animations of nuclear bombs going off, but no, we probably do that too. Like, there are plenty of shows that are super casual with this sort of thing. Not only with like their coverage of how wars might go if we do them, but once the war starts, the embedded report is like, do you remember? I forget exactly which conflict it was, but they like had there were missiles going off, and they were talking about them in such poetic terms.
Oh,
like we do the same sort of thing here, and we should be just as critical of our media that thinks that war can ever be abstract, that it doesn't have a human cost, a human toll. No, and I get sometimes there's obsession with military technology. I personally am very interested in military technology, weapons, vehicles, all that sort of thing. But I never forget that they're used to kill people. That's what these tools and weapons are used for. And apparently, the more you get paid in the media, the easier it is to forget about that or to conveniently ignore it.
It was Brian Williams. Was
Brian Williams?
There's more than him, and it was the missiles we launched into Syria.
In Syria,
and he talked about how beautiful, because there was the shot. He was almost looking like it was a 4th of July, fireworks going off, and look at the freedom that we're launching into this other country. I get the exact. Yeah, it was there were beautiful weapons launched into. We see these beautiful pictures at night from the decks of these 2 U.S. Navy vessels in Eastern Mediterranean, is what he said. I'm tempted to quote the great Leonard Cohen. I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons.
Yeah,
that's the way it works. And then, he did catch some outrage, but then again, the reason he said it is because that's the norm. He thought, like, if that wasn't the norm, he wouldn't have said that thinking, this is gonna be a great poetic moment. This is gonna go down in history. My voice over these missiles.
Jesus. Okay, very, very quickly, let's do the other part of this C block, because this is important too. We're gonna reset to talk about this. There was a big bombshell having to do with the war in Ukraine, the defense of Ukraine against the Russian invasion, and the link with the US. Did you know that they apparently say now that we provided intelligence that might have been instrumental in helping Ukraine to sink that old Russian warship? Made such big news just a couple of weeks ago, the Moskva, which was sunk in the Black Sea. They're saying that we provided intelligence for that. Now, some people immediately reacted to, is this the sort of thing that should be front page news, saying these lunatics want World War III? Because presumably Russia could be angry if it turned out that we were instrumental in that vessel being sunk, especially at a time when you're also getting headlines in the last 24 hours or so of the US intelligence being important in helping Ukraine to track down and kill Russian generals. Now, all of this, by the way, is being disputed, and you can take from that whatever you want. Any of these statements are basically worthless, but the reporting does say, we have to at least give it a chance, that the missile strike back in April by Ukrainian forces that used those, I believe it was Neptune missiles, and took out the Moskva, wouldn't have been possible without US assistance. It's unclear at this point how many Russian soldiers died in the attack. The US thinks there were significant casualties. We don't know, we probably never will know. Now, the US said they had no prior awareness of Ukraine's decision to strike the warship, that they provide information on troop movements, the movements of vessels, because those vessels get close to the coast to fire missiles and then roll away. It's important that you know where they are. They say, this is John Kirby, press secretary for Pentagon, we did not provide Ukraine with specific targeting information for the Moskva. So obviously we have no idea who to believe except nobody. But Jayar, presumably, Russia could be pretty angry about that.
Yeah, they've already been threatening and saying things like, if the assistance continues, then this can expand, and our targets will, it's similar to what was actually being said a few minutes ago about how, what they're gonna do to Britain, and these scenarios of threats of retaliation for this type of stuff. So I do get the concern when it comes to that, and we honestly don't know what's in especially when dire needs or desperation starts coming in, because I feel like this whole thing isn't really playing out the way Putin wanted it to in the first place. So just the threats coming, you don't really know to what degree they're real or fake. And honestly, of course, these outlets are gonna report this. They say officials report. Why are they telling these news outlets these things if they don't want them to report it? That's the whole idea.
That's true.
All news outlets want to do is report something. That's their only job. They're like, we have got nothing to say today. Oh, we got some inside scoop information. I don't know this personally, but I would assume there's not much of a thought process that comes to, but should we report this? What are the potential ramifications of us reporting this? And I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have thought of it either. Now, as we're looking at it now and we're seeing what the potential fallout could be, even if it's just threats, it puts people on edge, or it changes the way people go towards their policies or legislation.
Sure, yeah, and look, I think people need to know, we need to know, but we want to make sure that the most important thing, obviously, is not causing nuclear war. I think we can all agree on that, hopefully. Making sure that Ukraine isn't totally absorbed into Russia, really important too. We need to know along the way. We've been informing our audience from the very beginning of what the US is doing and what they're not doing to the best of our abilities. That's what we're gonna continue to do. By the way, really fast, I just want to jump ahead of the last couple graphics. So this was, previously we might have helped take down the Moskva. There was it was earlier this morning. I saw this on Forbes. The Russian frigate Admiral Makarov might be the juiciest target in the Black Sea now. And then almost immediately, it was trending. They think that might have been hit by Ukrainian missiles. Now that is disputed at this point. Do not accept that, because look, the sources that are reporting that and the Twitter stuff, I would hardly say is definitive. But in theory, initially they were saying with the Moskva, no, it didn't hit, it was spontaneous combustion, and then it sank. So this one apparently is also spontaneously combusting. Again, this is real. This is not just like, hey, funny news or whatever. Like that ship has hundreds of sailors on it. Right. That ship launches missiles that kills people. This is all incredibly consequential and real. And hopefully we don't get drawn in as a result of it. I'm assuming we didn't help in the targeting of the Admiral Makarov either.
But if we, a part about this is the braggadocio of the United States. We also love to talk about how we're the strongest military presence in the entire world. So if there's any assistance we can have with helping, or at least doing something like this on this large scale, and people are like, oh my God, how'd that happen? We'd love to be the ones to be like, hey, it was us. We're the badasses. We love taking that type of credit because we want to continue that same characterization of how badass we are and how you should not F with us.
Exactly. Okay, with that said, we're gonna move on to our second break. We come back. How big a snowflakes can the right be? Well, we will reveal it after this. Tassie Snick says, JR and John, J squared. We used to joke about J squared and stuff like that back in the day, the double J hour. It would be fun that I think we theoretically could do now that I'm in here, you're in there, and Rashad is in his own studio. Could we try doing those handoffs that they do? Those are fun.
I love that stuff. That's part what we mentioned before we started Watchlist. I was like, so we can do like this is the bad example, but I said at the time, the Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon handoff, because in which of those scenarios are we each one of those guys? I don't want to be either one.
Yeah, that's true. I do call Don Lemon though, so enjoy that. Just get after it. Anyway, with that said, we will look into that. I want to read some of your comments though. You've sent it. Oh my God, you guys have sent in a lot of comments. I want to make sure we get to some. Progressive Carpenter says in a super chat, love seeing you two do the news together. JR, thank you by the way, Progressive Carpenter. I love seeing your messages. JR, I had a Prius cut me off on the road the other day, and before raging out, I thought of you and took a deep breath. John, beard oil is a game changer.
I didn't know that.
Get cut off recently?
Me? No. I just talk about Prius drivers all the time. But actually, a Prius driver that cuts you off is finally driving his Prius. So I had 2 Prius drivers that actually sped and did their thing. I was like, drive that car, bro. I didn't know it had a gas pedal. I appreciate Prius drivers that drive their cars.
Yeah, Jesus.
It's the ones that don't that I'm
okay. Well, by the way, can I say So I've been into like DIY and home renovation a little bit over the past like year or so. And at points I've like kind of thought like, it'd be cool to have a truck or whatever. But the issue is that trucks like generally are way too big and get way too bad gas mileage.
That's true.
I found out that last year they came out with a hybrid that gets like 40 miles to the gallon truck. And I thought, maybe. Anyway, we'll see.
Is that the one that I suggested to you?
I don't know. I don't remember. They need to come out with electric trucks. I know that there's a few that are being worked on, and the F-150, which by the way is ridiculously expensive and big and everything. Why aren't there more cheap electric cars yet? They really need to start to work on that.
The norm. Once it's the norm, it'll happen.
Someday. Okay, Bernie the Kiwi Dragon says, hello, JI and JJ. Some good news from across the pond. British local council elections happened yesterday, and the Tories lost by quite a lot. I will take this as a win, TGIF. Good to hear. The UK could really use the boost considering they've had to watch those animations of the nuclear, Sharknado going over the island and everything. Anyway, Jose says, these go by too fast. Jose says, great to see you both doing the show together. Also, Republicans at large won't be happy until their Hunger Games Handmaid's Tale crossover fanfic becomes the reality we all have to live in. Totally. Okay, Jessica says, if Chris had his hat off, Biden would be a lot closer. Is that a thing? With a nose emoji. Is that implying that he'd smell? Christian smells his hair? Jesus. Anyway, Seafish just said Zuckerberg is a Cylon. He wishes he was a Cylon. Cylons are the cool robots. Mr. Shadow says, we got you the Webby, you and your team, while heartily deserve. When do we get the wall of the dragon art sent to you? Build the wall. We need to do that. I have a bunch of it collected. I don't generally do that sort of thing in the studio, but I told Leah about it and hopefully it will happen. Okay, Carbon Image says, took a break from the political train wreck to watch the Depp Heard train wreck. Enough train wrecks. Save us, Dragon Daddy and JR. Yeah, we haven't talked about that yet. That's a rough story in a lot of different ways. Anyway, over on Twitch, the guy called Keith hit 17 months says, you guys are a rock in the river. Thanks. I assume that's a good thing. I appreciate that. Arose 1000 has been here for 14 months, says, I always watch the list. I like that. Trima Batiki hit 22 months. Nice, thank you. Mac Alistair hit 7 months. English Canadian hit 17, says, not only watch the watch list, but renewed my subscription with Bezos Bucks. Well, thank you very much. Now, with that said, we have a little bit more news to get to, so don't go anywhere. Geez, you bring JR back on the show and the hour just flies by, but we do have more to talk about. We'll see how much we can get to, starting with this story. The right wants to be clear about a couple different things. One, they don't abide snowflakes, and two, they're not down with cancel culture. Just let people say and do what they want with their speech, with their art. All that said, take a look at this. In a letter sent to the TV Parental Guidelines Monitoring Board, a group of Republican politicians, including literal US senators, have strongly urged the regulatory body to update its guidelines to alert parents of content related to sexual orientation or gender identity. This is not, by the way, just state reps or state senators. Those are just literal senators saying, you need to create new ratings so that I don't accidentally see a gay person on an episode of TV or in a movie. So some of the details, they say, we strongly urge you to update the TV parental guidelines and ensure that they are up to date on best practices that help inform parents on this, in their words, disturbing content. They think that the fact that you might have a trans character on a show is by its very nature disturbing content, which is an interesting revelation for all of us who have been told that if we have any concerns about being offended by anything, that we're being a snowflake and we should just stiff upper lip or something. I don't know. Apparently they can't, they fall apart at the idea of someday seeing a lesbian on TV. Anyway, they went into, of course, a big thing about Disney, saying that, oh my God, they want to have, quote, many LGBTQIA plus characters in our stories. Can you imagine? They're saying this radical and sexual sensation not only harms children, but also destabilizes and damages parental rights. It is a radical and sexual sensation, which is what my indie rock group was called, and it never caught on. But again, what we're talking about is content that mentions gender or that has an LGBTQ character is by its very nature offensive, radical, and sexual. In a way that, again, I'll say, they will never explain how having a straight character on TV isn't inherently sexual, but having a bi character is inherently a sexual thing. Basically pornography, JR.
This is more of their thought of everyone should be looking at the world through their own skewed eyes. So as you point out there, it's weird, you can have straight folks on TV from childhood. They show these up and coming of age movies and TV shows where teenagers, it's a boy and a girl, the girl next door, the shy guy, the boys that come together and then learn about each other as they pursue that the girl that just the prom stories. All these are constant. It's been over and over and over again throughout all of our TV. It's in cartoons. To talk about Disney and how the battle they're having with Ron DeSantis now, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast. It's weird how all of, in fact, they'll accept bestiality.
They do.
Before they'll accept LGBTQ stories being told. Now, if all these stories have been told our entire lives, how do we still have anybody who identifies as gay, lesbian, bi, queer, anything? I thought they'd be getting indoctrinated into being straight. If you can be indoctrinated into being gay because you watch gay people kiss every once in a while, that's amazing how it doesn't work that way. But no one ever asks that question of these folks who are implementing these types of things. They're afraid of it actually hurting people. Ron DeSantis, it's a discomfort. So everyone in the country has to kowtow to their discomfort.
Yep.
That's a form of supremacy. We're better than you. Our opinion and our point of view is more important than your existence. So therefore, you have to conform to our perception of who you are in every realm possible. And we're gonna legislate that. Does that sound like America to you? Ron DeSantis is upset about CRT teachings, which are not happening. He's upset about the history of our country being taught and our ugly racist history being taught. And the reason he's against it, and he openly said that this is not some criticism, because it'll make people uncomfortable. If they're uncomfortable with seeing our history, Imagine what the people who had to live it felt like. Were they comfortable?
100%.
Do we care about them? No, it's based on discomfort for people right now. These snowflakes. I'll change the wording I was going to go with.
Good catch there, because while I don't believe that we should have new regulations that identify LGBTQ content, they do have language regulations right now, and we are unfortunately bound by them. I don't approve of those either, but they do exist. Yeah, no, this is absolutely ridiculous, and that specifically they want, like, they could just say, people, I don't think people should watch this stuff. There's a gay character, you shouldn't watch it, or we're gonna create our own group that produces pamphlets that inform people about content so they can make choices. No, this is the government should step in and stop it from happening. Marissa, thank you for the update. It's not gonna happen. We'll get to it on the other side though. But I appreciate that. You're good to the very end. No, the government should step in and they should well, okay, if for that, then for what else? Like, would you support, ratings that identify content that could be interpreted as supporting white supremacy or anti-Semitic content? Like, how many? Should it be 1,000 different warnings on every single thing? Is that what you want? Of course you don't actually want that. This is specifically, again, about demonizing the LGBTQ community. And even that is that's a side effect. This is about continually reinforcing for their base that this is a big issue. It must be, since US senators are talking about it. They talk about it and talk about it. And so it's no wonder that they freak people out. But I will piggyback on what Jayar was saying. The whole thing about the indoctrination that you can switch someone over, and I know that there are people who believe that. Charlie Kirk has talked about that in his show. I would love to ask Charlie, how many hours of watching gay content would it take for you to become gay? Like, could you manage 20 minutes, but then you're starting to get nervous? Could you do a full hour? How many hours would it take before that's the end of straight man Charlie Kirk? It's nonsense. That's not how any of this actually works.
All these people also know folks that are within the LGBTQ community. Did you catch the virus? Did you have to mask up? What is it that they think happens with people for who they are? It's amazing. But by the way, this is the same type of narrative that came from any other press group throughout our history. Again, a side note as to why they don't want any of it taught, because we might understand how the system continues to get used over and over again to create the next hated person so that they can continue to usurp power.
Yeah, 100%. By the way, really fast, in terms of how much representation there actually is, we just want to give you some updated numbers. So there's a poll released in 2021, said that 15.9% of Gen Z adults, those are born between 1997 and 2002, identify as part of the LGBTQ community. That's 1 in 6 adult members of Gen Z. So in terms of actual representation, this year, broadcast networks actually set a new record. 11.9% of series regular characters on scripted primetime broadcast series were LGBTQ characters. So that's up from the previous year by a couple points. So it's still not very high. It's not in line with the actual percentage of the population, but this is what they hate. They're terrified of another Glee, another Will and Grace. Ooh. Anyway, with that said, thank you. If you're on one of the platforms where that's it, we do have more for Twitch, YouTube, and our members app, so don't go anywhere. Jayar and I'll be back after this. Welcome back to the show, everyone, with me, John Iadarola, and Jayar Jackson, host of the Watchlist. Glad to have you here. You're muted. Oddly enough, I could hear him during the break.
Sorry. I'm new to this. This is a whole different set. The mute button just jumps up on me. I'm sorry.
That's true.
But thank you. Glad to be here.
So really fast, how has it been hosting your own show after years? I mean, you've led the main show many times, but you have your own show now. It's been several months. What part of it surprised you the most?
Being able to connect with like a guest. So like this is I think I told you this like candidly in the office maybe a week or two ago, John. I was used to just responding, but when I have to drive it and then get the other person to respond, it's a different beast. So then I've gotten used to that. That's been the biggest learning curve, and I've done that. And now when I'm back on this end of it, every time you're talking, I'm like, like I want to speak so much more. I want to read the damn graphics. I want to go to the sites. I was like, what is this guy talking so much for?
Exactly. Yeah. No. 100%. It's very different. Like, and it's just behind. It's inside baseball or whatever. But yeah, like being the lead versus being a responder, being in a panel of 2 people versus 3 versus 4. It's so different.
Yeah, and then you have to try to keep track of what you're about to jump into. I mean, I get to just ramble
100%.
when I'm on mine, like and my producer.
Yeah, and so far on mine too. I'm kidding. Anyway, I'm totally joking. Okay, so before we jump back into the news, let's get to some of your comments. RKNG1 Garcia says 40 miles per gallon for a truck hybrid is almost the same as my Sonata hybrid. Yeah. There just need to be more cheap hybrids, more cheap. Why? Like, what happened to cheap cars in America? It's just they're not nearly enough. I saw something. Now. It was like that's true. I saw something. It was like the average new car sale is like $45,000 in the US, and I thought that's more than every vehicle I've ever owned combined and a bunch. Like $45,000? Isn't that like a luxury car? Isn't that like a BMW like 5 Series or something?
That's the base BMW. Base.
Absolutely.
That's just how. And what you're looking at, about $600 car payments minimum with that, $650 maybe.
Oh my God. Plus insurance and everything. Oh geez. Okay. Anyway, Black Malibu Barbie's been a member for 12 months. Says hi, Dragon Daddy and Jayar. I got my daughter to watch TDR with me today. Fingers crossed she becomes a dragon. We'll accept her either way, but I hope so too. Okay, Raylan says hi, John and Jayar. Love the new set, Jayar. John, you and Jeff Waldorf should do a McConnell off. It will be a bit too late for me though. That's scary at the end there. What's going on with it'll be a bit too late for you then? Well, anyway, Jeff Waldorf actually is going to be on the first hour of the Young Turks with me today. Maybe we will be able to do a little bit of a McConnell off. Okay, over on. I hope you're okay, by the way. I was a little bit worried there by the end of your message. Okay, Hayes Mel, 19 months with us on Twitch, says greetings from Inverness, Scotland. Good luck, America. Thank you. Georgia gifted a tier 1 sub. Very nice of you. Thank you very much. Sleepy Tyrant's been here for 4 months. Says Gibberish Dragon here for month 4 on Twitch and year 3 on TYT. Much love to John and Jayar. Thank you. Oh my God, there's a lot of gifting going on. Glitteriest Lady Dread gifted multiple subs. Lavender Dawn gifted 1 too. Drew and Georgia gifted 1. Thank you so much. Past 500 gifted subs, by the way. And VV Greeley hit 18 months. Says Chris Smalls on TDR when? That's a good idea. I don't know if we've ever actually. I assume we've reached out to him. We should try again. I have a feeling he's probably quite busy, but we will try.
Glitteriest Lady Dread. I like that name.
I do like it. It's kind of like a mullet. Like it's like cute and sparkly on the front, but then you got the dread at the end. Anyway, with that said, why don't we move on to the worst story ever? Oh, geez.
Why not?
We've profiled a lot of really horrible candidates in this cycle. I think this will be the worst. At the very least, I hope that he'll be the worst. This is Andrew Nathan Wilhoit, and you can see him in this photo. Conveniently, it's a mugshot. Now, he just won a Republican primary in Indiana on Tuesday night, despite the fact that he is right now in prison being charged with having murdered his wife, Nikki Wilhoit. He won the election. He had already been arrested for the murder. Now, there is some information you need to know that maybe makes you feel a little bit better about this, but first, we want to jump into what actually happened to Nikki Wilhoit, because that's the most important part of this. So it had been profiled previously. Back in March is when this happened. Miss Wilhoit vanished. According to a press release from Boone County Sheriff's Office, deputies began investigating it Friday, March 25th, because a coworker said that she hadn't come to work. So here's what they have to say. Boone County investigators had originally taken a missing persons report earlier in the day. and had taken to social media asking for the public to help in trying to find her. During the course of the investigation, detectives were able to determine that during the course of a domestic dispute, the candidate, Andrew, Elizabeth's husband, had struck her in the head with a blunt object, causing her to lose consciousness. He then placed her in a vehicle and drove her to a nearby creek where he dumped her body. Absolutely disgusting. She was a cancer patient at that point. She apparently had been thinking about divorce, maybe talking to him, letting him know that she was considering it. And this is absolutely disgusting what happened. Now, he received 60 votes. He will appear on the November ballot for the Clinton Township Board. There were 2 other winners in the primary to fill the 3 available seats. He will remain in jail until his trial, at the very least, if not, the rest of his life. And apparently, the way that the structure of the election works, even if he had gotten only 1 vote, because it wasn't challenged, there are no Democrats running, he could fit into that last slot no matter what. But he still received 60 votes, JR. Maybe they didn't know. I want to believe that they didn't know. What do you think?
This probably to a degree that, but I'm sure the other folks had heard and maybe they speculated, maybe they just don't care. They're like, what did she do then? We know we hear about these types of violence. Maybe it doesn't always result in death, but whenever people get victimized, there's definitely a percentage of people that are like, well, what did she do? Do you guys know what happened in the fight? Things like that to justify it because maybe they have skeletons in their closets. Maybe specifically, or maybe actually they have those in their closet. But again, it's 60 votes. It's such a small area. Maybe reasons why someone like this would think they can get some kind of position of power in this area because there's just not that many people there. You have a decent chance because there's enough bad people in the world that you can garner 60 votes for yourself in killing someone. Now I was thinking about this too because maybe it says I'm getting older, but imagine you make it this far. There was Adrian sent me something about this elderly man that was killed, or maybe it was a woman that was killed. And I was like, imagine getting to this point in your life, and first off, she's diagnosed with cancer and has to go through all this chemo and everything. And the end of your life is consistently on your mind, and your husband's the one that does this to you.
I know,
right? And this is the end of your existence. It's over. Like people don't fully really collect the thought process of what it is when someone does this to the other person and then dump your body, and that's the end of you. And this guy gets enough votes to be on some kind of board in this garbage county. Sorry for people who live there who are decent folks, but this is now a member of some representation in your town. Who would not be up in arms about this?
Look, there are people saying there's no reason you can't be a candidate. You're innocent until you're proven guilty. That's all true. Sure, that is true. Anyway, look, I think considering the low level of this and how severe it is, he's, the Republicans are gonna keep him at arm's distance, I'm sure. But like, how many of these sorts of things have we had to talk about in just one cycle? And bear in mind, we profile a lot of bad candidates in every cycle. We've had to sort of focus our time on physical abusers and sexual abusers. We haven't really put any time into just like the crazies. Like in past cycles, we've talked about those who believe in QAnon and conspiracy theories. Like we don't even really have headspace and time to do that because we have to deal with people who are literally committing violent crimes against people. That's now the threshold. And look, this guy, he killed his cancer-stricken wife. We had the candidate we talked about just yesterday, who back in the 90s like pushed his pregnant wife down and kicked her. And like there's multiple candidates like this, and they're not gonna endorse this guy or whatever. They don't even care about this level. There are plenty of candidates that they are hugging them. Herschel Walker, they're not running away from him, or Herbster, Miller and Greitens. And how many in one cycle, JR, do we have to have before that becomes a story in its own right?
Even if you support this guy, and he's just been charged, he's innocent until proven guilty, as you mentioned, all that stuff. Do you want a guy representing you? What type of work do you want him to do while he's fighting his legal case? While he's in jail and has to try to find some kind of bail? Because he's charged with murder, I would assume. That's not something you're just gonna bail out with $5,000 for. Or maybe in this county you do. What capacity do you think he has to do the work that you expect him to do to represent you? Or whatever it is that you expect him to do? These things aren't thought through. I did a story earlier today about Corey Mills, who's running for Congress, larger office than this guy is running for. And he's talking about tear gassing the media. Bro, that's the new platform. So of course, when you've killed folks, potentially charged with killing folks, why is that not an issue?
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to roll on to our next story. Things are about to get a little bit weird. Let's jump into this.
Look who's here. Devin Nunes, the man who runs Trump's Truth Social. All right, Devin, Musk turns Twitter around. If he does, where does that leave Truth Social, which you run?
Well, it's great to be with you, Stuart. And we're all for it. President Trump, basically before Elon Musk bought it, actually said to go and buy it because the goal of our company is really to build a community where people are in a family-friendly, safe environment. Very much different than Twitter. And that's why we encourage Elon Musk to buy it, because someone has to continue to take on these tech tyrants. Donald Trump wanted to make sure that the American people got their voice back and that the internet was open, and that's what we are doing. And so people like Elon Musk doing what he's doing, we're definitely in favor of it. But
yeah, we definitely love the fact that these competitors that we have no chance of ever catching up to now actually has more cred on the right wing than before. I'm actually laughing right now. Marissa, who edited that video, thank you for the little zoom into his face. You can see, hey, look who we've got here. We've got Devin Nunes. Why? Who wouldn't be happy to have Devin on? He looks comfortable and human. Anyway, no, we're actually like Elon Musk loves us. That's why he told us to do it. That's why we did it. So you should love us because you like Elon Musk. And Elon Musk is just stopping the plague of tech titans owning these platforms. He's a tech guy who's the richest man in the world. Seems like an example of what you're talking about rather than ending it. But anyway, look, this is not good news for Truth Social. Setting aside the fact that he just said there that Truth Social can continue to exist, he implied, because Twitter is a bit wilder, whereas Truth Social is more family friendly. Well, what does that mean? What sort of content moderation and language restrictions are you having that makes it necessarily more family friendly? I thought it was everything goes. I thought it was the same mission statement as all of these other right-wing platforms. But no, I guess there's something he's not telling us about the sort of censorship they're gonna be doing, Jayar.
I'm trying to figure out how long he was going to hold that.
That was
face.
good.
I thought it froze for a second.
Okay, Jayar,
I thought,
give your best. Give your best version. Okay, can we do it side by side?
Okay. I don't know. I can't do it. It's really hard. Some people have naturally bad smiles. I notice things like this. It's so
happy to be here on Truth Social as a bastion of free speech.
Some people think,
that hurts, actually.
Yeah, it's weird. I was like, I think he's holding, because some people think, let me give a half smile, let me not show any teeth. Like there's supposed to be these levels of smile to show what's going on with whatever intro. Like I want to be pleasant, so let me go half smile, like smirk, teeth.
I can't look. To be fair, and Edwin can attest to this, I can't smile on command either. So I guess maybe it's throwing stones, glass houses, all that.
Good idea here. If you can't smile on command, just don't. If they enter you, just look at the. I was close again. Just look at the camera, bro. Just look at the camera. It'll be okay.
Human.
Now, also, by the way, Truth Social and how amazing it is and how much Elon Musk loves it. If we don't, in case you guys forgot, Elon Musk did tweet out how horrible of a name it was. First of all, it should be called Trumpet, he said. So. They're all working together. They're all good guys, all buddy. Elon Musk has taken to Twitter in order to promote himself, and that's strictly it. He's an old school nerd that thinks he's gonna be cool now. And everything he does is backed about himself.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Also, by the way, Elon Musk says that what they were saying is a lie, that he didn't tell him to buy it or whatever. So here's an interesting just two shot of news. So here's news, and I know that because I read it on Twitter. Apparently, Sky Ferreira, singer, songwriter, model, declined to go to the Met Gala with Elon Musk. He wanted to go with this model who I'm gonna say is half his age. Everybody forgets he's 50 plus. Anyway, she didn't want to go. Now he says, I didn't ask anyone out or request particular seating. Well, first of all, Elon Musk, could you not try to stamp out the free speech rights of Pop Crave? They get to say whatever they want. I mean, it looks like it wasn't true, but what does that have to do with anything? Why are you trying to censor them when they're saying things? Or for instance, he responded to the story that we just told you, saying that Devin Nunes is lying. He says this is false. I've had no communication directly or indirectly with Trump, who has publicly stated that he will be exclusively on Truth Social. No. Why are you like? He gets to say it. He can say things, and then those things are out there. Oh, are you implying that misinformation can be damaging, whether it's about someone's personal life or about something that has implications for their business? Are you implying that? Now, like, there are actually replies super fast that are like, well, no, but this is actually a demonstration of what Elon is saying. They lied and he responded. That's more speech. It's better. Yes, I think that what we should have to do is everyone in real time should have to respond to every single lie. Now, these are inconsequential ones, Elon Musk. But what about lies that could stimulate an insurrection, that could lead to people getting sick and dying, spreading COVID? Do you see how an individual billionaire having to respond to every lie told about on Twitter is no way to run a social media company?
They don't
I still choose to believe that thing about Sky Ferreira is true, and I think it's absolutely hilarious.
Those people are insignificant. That's the difference.
Exactly. He'll always be protected. It's us that we can get doxxed and everything. Anyway, with that said, are we ready to do this thing? I didn't even know there was a garbage can emoji on there.
I like that. That was
okay.
Dope, Marissa.
It's the end of the week, and so it's time to take out the trash. Okay, we have got a special garbage man with us today. That is Jayar Jackson. Who is your garbage person of the week?
I'm not sure if I should split it to two, but I'm gonna go with the one who facilitated the whole thing. Well, Casey White is a convicted, admitted murderer. A white supremacist murderer, which we found out because he's got a bunch of tattoos of Nazis and Confederacy and all this stuff all over him. He's like 6'9". He's a huge person, and probably doesn't blend into crowds very well. So he needed the help of this lady who was a correctional officer that was in the jail where he was being held, Vicky White. She's the actual garbage person. First, when they escaped, because she took him out of the jail herself and put him in her squad car, she was first considered to be potentially a victim of his heinous crimes. Maybe she was taken with him because she's had no record of doing anything wrong the whole time when she's been working in this prison. But she suddenly retired. She sold her house for a third of what it was worth, and they're on the run. Now they discovered that she's actually part of it. So a garbage person, Vicky White, I guess primarily, because we already knew that Casey White, not related by the way, was definitely a garbage person. And we're just seeing it more and more now. Maybe they'll catch up with them. Hopefully they will. But Vicky White's 100% my garbage person.
I will never understand how these things develop. Like, and this is worse than the way that this story normally goes. Like, you always hear about serial killers and rapists that have these like pen pal relationships where people fall in love with them or whatever. But like, you're actually there, you're actually interacting with them. How, man? It's the only reason that you know this person, that you interact with them, is because they killed another woman. He confessed to it. Like, and then other crimes too. Like, we'll set those aside. The actual murder of a woman. Why would I don't understand it, Jayar? I don't understand it.
Well, people fall in love for some reason with people in prison. I mentioned this when I first did the story. Remember the Menendez brothers?
Yeah.
From the 90s when they killed their parents. There was some weird doc I saw years ago and still now, and they're like the flood of letters that get sent to them in prison of women who want to marry them. I think they did get married to someone. One of them did at least from prison. It's a weird phenomenon. It's some human nature thing that maybe all of us can't figure out. But it's weird. Some people, and it's I guess specifically when it comes to a guard that actually is close proximity to these folks, no matter the fact that he killed these folks and basically is a serial killer to a degree, she's attracted to it. There's nothing else going in her life. I don't know.
Like, she's the guard. She feels protected in some way. She thinks she can control him or something. That is a risky game.
It's more exciting.
And so they're looking for them?
Yeah, they're looking for them. I'm not sure if they've gotten anywhere on this or where the details have gone, but I feel like they're gonna be pretty easy to find unless they take off out of the whole country. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay, wow.
Trying to change her image.
If you recognize that person, do something about it. Thank you. My garbage person of the week takes a little bit of setup. So obviously a lot of people are really concerned about what's going on with the SCOTUS and everything. And they're trying to persuade the other side in a lot of different ways. So first of all, I want to go to some of the tweets from Jill Filipovic, who is not my garbage person of the week, who says, there are millions of men whose lives would have been much worse without abortion. Men who wouldn't have found their big loves, wouldn't have had their kids, wouldn't have been as successful, wouldn't have taken big risks. Many of them don't think about it. Some don't even know it. How many men are sitting in elected office, running companies, caring for their much loved kids, going on big adventures, working their way up, making their art, writing their books, appearing on your television screen because they didn't become fathers before they were ready? I would bet though that most of them don't think about their abortion their partner had as saving their lives too. I would bet they don't think about it much at all. And many of them are the beneficiaries of abortions they still don't know about. Look, I think that has a lot of truth to it. I think it's true of a lot of different people. It should be something that causes you to think. For some, including my garbage person of the week, I don't know if this qualifies as thought. It certainly isn't helpful. It's Ross Duhat, I think it is, the New York Times, who tweeted in response to her thread, worth noting that in the 50 years since Roe, men have become less likely to find a spouse, less likely to father kids or live with the kids they father, and less likely to participate in the workforce. Because this guy, works for the New York Times, apparently discovered what a correlation is. He doesn't understand any of the consequences of it, what it means. But he's like, well, a thing happened and then other things happened, ergo, they're linked. Is it possible, Ross, that other things have happened in the past 50 years that might have led to changing rates of marriage and childbirth and all that you can't necessarily pick something that, I don't even think he's specifically saying he opposes like Roe v. Wade, but he certainly seems to be indicating that, well, to be fair, okay, you gotta balance the fact that women finally had some control over their bodies and their fate, but it was a real inconvenience for men in a lot of different ways. It's such a ridiculously unnecessary and toxic addition to the conversation, Jayar.
It's you know what, maybe the actual reasons behind this issue with what men have been going through all these years in the past 50 years is that women have, it's with anyone, but specifically in this case, when women have more rights or actually have a chance to work for themselves, live on their own and not have to depend on men, because that was the way things were always set up, men have to become more attractive. Men have to become more wanted, or that women want something from them outside of the need for an income and a roof over their head, like their children or something. When women have a right over their own fate and outcome, men have to be worthy of them to choose them outside of just, oh, he's got a good job, I guess I'll have to live comfortably. Whatever this disgusting piece of garbage human I'm with, I have to. Now they have more choice, and then we have men that are in less relationships, have fewer children, because there's a lot of really idiotic men out here who have no idea how to navigate through a relationship or actually participate in something cordial with someone else, because they never had to.
That's
hey, maybe learn how to be a decent person, maybe.
Yeah. Super fast additional commentary. Don Moynihan, he likes playing with correlations too, and seems to understand them better than Duhat. Says worth noting that unemployment rapidly dropped after Britney Spears released "Work Bitch," and that's indisputable. It came out at that point, and then line go down. But no, honestly, if he said in the 50 years since it, labor force participation has changed. Okay, well, bring up this chart. The yellow line is Roe v. Wade. It had been going down for decades already. Is it possible that that's not the actual cause? Anyway, that's my garbage person of the week. But many of you voted, 37,000 of you voted for the community garbage person of the week. And coming in at number 5 was Neil Gorsuch at 2% for his involvement in the SCOTUS decision. So people weren't loving that. I love the choices here. Coming in at number 4 with 10% of the vote is Amy Coney Barrett. She couldn't get much recognition there. Brett Kavanaugh in third at 12%. Clarence Thomas in second at 17%. Samuel Alito, though, is your community garbage person of the week with 58% of the vote. For the same reason they're all on there, because they decided that it was up to them whether women get to count as human or not. So thank you to the 37,000 of you who voted. I think you chose right. Anyway, Jayar, it was a pleasure having you back on the show. I look forward to this becoming a recurring thing.
I don't know. We'll try and figure something out. I'm gonna have to get some space or something first.
Okay, we'll figure it out. Anyway, Indisputable's up next. I'll be on the first hour of the Young Turks with Cenk and with Jeff Waldorf later on, so definitely stay tuned for that. Until then, though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. Bid adieu to Marissa out there, and I'll see you later.